All right, the Wii video, Nintendrone. Overall, this video, during the time it was released, I thought it was really good. In retrospect, on rewatch, it's okay. It's not as good as I thought it was when it came out because, but it's still pretty good. And I think because later down the road I put out the Wii U video, and I think that one's like way better than this one. As far as like a sort of like analysis of the Wii's life cycle, I think the Wii U was kind of like, they're both kind of similar videos, and I think I did a much better job with the Wii U. Yeah, this Wii video is still pretty good, and I enjoy the overall structure and kind of the story I kind of tell where, yeah, the console kind of started out good, and then kind of halfway it kind of got shitty, and regardless of the way I tell this story in the video, I still kind of overall agree with that thesis. You know what I mean? Now here's like, this is probably like the one aspect of this video that I think isn't necessarily good, is mostly the fact that I'm kind of giving the game away really early on by saying like, yeah, I was disappointed by the Wii. I didn't like the Wii. And maybe I should have waited that out and or kind of like revealed that later down the road. Because, yeah, again, like, as I've talked about before with, like, the Donkey Kong 64 video, or, like, any other video, like, when you start a video and you're like, yo, this shit sucks, like, people are just gonna hate it, like, and they're gonna check the fuck out. Whereas, if you kind of, like, drip feed it over the course of the video, and then finally come to that conclusion on your own, like, people may disagree with you still, but at least they'll kind of like hear you out and kind of understand where you're coming from. And this Wii video is definitely like, it kind of suffers from that same problem I did with like the Donkey Kong 64 video or any other videos like that, where right out the gate I'm saying, yo, this shit, right out the gate, just like, this shit sucks, I don't like it, you know? But overall, this beginning kind of rant, I think it does kind of summarize like my expectations for Nintendo consoles overall and what I kind of expect. And I do think like whether you're kind of aware about it, whether or not you're kind of aware or not, like I think everyone kind of goes into buying consoles with those kinds of expectations as well. So overall, the structure is really good. I am kind of setting the groundwork for like the foundation for why I was disappointed with the Wii. So in that respect, it's really good. It's good. It's a good structure, and it does work out. But that is like the one caveat with this video where it's like, yeah, maybe I'm being a bit too negative way too fast, where maybe I should have started the video a lot more positive, talk about Galaxy and Twilight Princess and all these like good memories I have with the Wii, playing Wii Sports and stuff. And then when I transitioned all like the bad shit, later down the road, then it's at least, it's like more justified,
I mean, that's about it, but it was really fun. It's basically a glorified tech demo that shows off the motion controls, but the novelty of the technology.
But yeah, and it's kind of funny how in this video I'm kind of shitting on the Wii. The Wii, not like the Wii itself, but like the Wii era overall, like, because I would say the first couple of years of the Wii were really good, and I love the console. Overall, I do love the console. As like, if we're not including like all the like virtual channel stuff, like, because I played this shit out of like virtual channel games, and yeah, and like all these earlier Wii games were really good too, So it's overall, I did enjoy the Wii, kind of like, I would say like I didn't like regret the purchase, you know what I mean? Yeah, this bit's really funny because man, because I would say like during the time, like I think around the time I was like just like middle school, high school, kind of around that time, like, yeah, man, during the time, like, as far as like all the Nintendo consoles are concerned, like the Wii was like, I was the most excited to get the Wii, and I wanted a fucking Wii so badly. But again, it was like that kind of era of your childhood where like you're like old enough to where like if you had the time and resources, you could probably go out and like wait all night to get one. But you know, I'm not old enough to drive yet. I'm not like near like a store that would sell one. So, and obviously I don't have like the money, you know, let's be real. You know, I'm still like, I don't have enough money to buy a fucking Wii, you know? So again, I'm still like dependent on like my fucking, you know, parents to drive me over to Best Buy to like try to get one. And overall, like they were pretty supportive in their efforts to find one because, especially like when like Christmas rolled around, like we were really trying to find one. And like, again, it's that classic shit where like when you're with your mom and dad, like, oh yeah, we'll just wake up at like 6 a.m. like the day of, and like when they restock the Wii, and yeah, that'll work. And it's like, no, it's not going to work, obviously, because, you know, there's like a bunch of people who like wait overnight, or like just people like who are actually like, you know, more resourceful, you know? So kind of just in that time and place, like I was just absolutely fucked. And never was able to get one until like way later down the road, until like I literally just scalped it off someone. Yeah. But yeah, now one weird thing about this video is I didn't talk about Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Kind of when I was talking about all the good games. Like, I don't know why. Kind of a weird oversight. Maybe it was like, maybe I'm going off like the release dates of the games, maybe? I'm not sure, but that's definitely a weird oversight, because Brawl was like the best game I played on the Wii. And yeah, I would say the weakest aspect of this Wii video overall is just like, yeah, man, all the Wii games kind of fucking suck dick, so they're like not that fun to talk about. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm talking about like this Donkey Kong Barrel Blast game and like the fucking like Wii music and shit. It's just like, there's just like, outside of like Galaxy and, you know, Twilight Princess, you know, and like a couple of niche, like, you know, couple of Nintendo games, like everything else is just like totally forgettable and like not worth mentioning. But that's kind of the problem with this video overall, is like, obviously I have to talk about this shit, you know, I have to talk about like all this garbage that Nintendo is putting out, because that's ultimately why I was disappointed, you know.
I made a fan translation of all the Donkey Konga 3 songs. I did some sick Smash Mouth remixes. You can have it. Just take it. Did Cranky Kong make the Donkey Kong?
But yeah, overall I would say like video is still pretty good. I like this video still overall, but and again, like I'm definitely not like talking about like ports, you know, like I'm not talking about like, because I definitely played RE4 on the Wii for the first time, but like I'm not really talking about that because it was a GameCube game, it was a PS2, it was just a port, you know. And I think the same thing with the Okami. I think I might have, the first time I might have played Okami was on the Wii as well. But again, like I feel like I kind of just didn't talk about it because, again, Okami's a port. It was a PS2 game, you know, like whatever, you know. It kind of, although like there were like a couple of like third-party games that I ended up playing that kind of that kind of built up the Wii's kind of the Wii library of games that I did eventually play. You know what I mean? Like, I do think overall, I'm mainly in this video kind of just focusing on like Nintendo as a whole, because I feel like the direction Nintendo was going in, like, that's kind of the narrative of the whole video. Like, going into the Wii, you know, they clearly had like this really like this strong direction coming into the Wii. And then kind of as the Wii was popping off and they got popular, like, that's when things got bad. And that energy carried over to the Wii U. And that's why the Wii U ended up sucking hella dick. And again, here I am just absolutely shitting on Super Paper Mario at every opportunity I get. I have that grudge from the Paper Mario is Dead video. I will hold that grudge the rest of my life. Every chance I get to shit on Super Paper Mario, I will fucking do it. Yeah.
When Super Paper Mario was released, it was the worst game in the series. It's not absolutely awful, but it's the start of a downward slope that hasn't recovered since. Another game I don't care about that much is Mario Kart Wii. During the time, I thought that Mario Kart Wii was pretty interesting.
And again, here we're getting a bit controversial, shitting on Mario Kart Wii. This is definitely a controversial take, but I'm not like a huge fan of Mario Kart Wii at all. Like, and again, like, bro, again, I do kind of agree with this. Like, I feel like Mario Kart Wii, like, unless you're doing like ghetto ass speedrun shit, like, there's almost no reason to go back to Mario Kart Wii.
With the addition of underwater, flying, and anti-gravity sections, better item balance, and a shit ton of fun DLC.
And unfortunately, like, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is just so, it has fucking everything, and the DLC has just stacked it to like basically being the best Mario Kart game of all time, essentially, because of how much content it has. And especially, like, what the fuck are they gonna do with Mario Kart 9? Like, I don't even know, bro. Like, they've kind of fucked themselves, I'm not gonna lie.
Mario Kart 64, and if Mario Kart 64 isn't available, like, fuck it.
And again, now we're kind of like, we're going into like hot takes. Like, this whole video is kind of basically like hot takes, especially this section of the video. And yeah, man, like, because in retrospect, like, I look back at the Wii and the Wii catalog and I'm like, oh yeah, these are all like pretty solid games. Like City Folk, for example, like, that's a very solid game. That's a good game. But man, like, in the context of like when it came out and like playing it right after Wild World, you know, like, yeah, it was kind of disappointing. Like,
one of the last great games on the Wii was Super Smash Bros. Brawl. This is the perfect,
and that's kind of like where my own kind of personal perspective comes in when I'm talking about these console videos, because yeah, man, I imagine, like, you know, if the Wii was your first console and, you know, like, you never played Wild World and you never played Mario Kart or, you know, you never played Super Smash Bros, you know what I mean? Like, this stuff would be so fucking hype. Like, and it would be like, dude, this is the greatest console ever. You know what I mean? And I do kind of recognize that. So when people disagree with me and they say, like, what the fuck are you talking about, bro? The Wii's great. You know, I do get it. Like, but again, this is just my own personal kind of perspective with the Wii, because, yeah, because 100%, I totally realize, like, yeah, if I was 10 years older and, like, I grew up with, like, the NES and the SNES, you know, I could easily make, like, a Nintendo 64 and GameCube style video just like this one, because, like, there are, like, a lot of disappointing aspects with the GameCube and the Nintendo 64, like, especially from the perspective of, like, how Nintendo is doing and, like, you know, how there aren't as many games on those consoles overall, you know what I mean? I was very proud of this bit. The cut to, the shitty, like, that one E3 where they're playing fucking Wii music and it sounds like shit.
Excuse me while I put on my tinfoil hat. It doesn't take a genius to realize that Nintendo.
Now, this is kind of a smart decision I made, where I'm not, like, forcing my opinion kind of into the, I'm not, like, forcing my opinions onto people, but I'm kind of just saying, like, this is, like, my conspiracy theory. This is kind of like what I'm theorizing. Because again, like, I would say the one problem with this video, especially with, like, this conspiracy theory angle I'm going with here, is I'm kind of getting the vibes where, like,
themselves a safety net.
Have you ever written like a essay in like school or whatever, and you're like kind of coming to the conclusion of the essay before you've even written it? But then as you write the essay and you kind of examine everything, what you're kind of writing ends up being like a sort of different conclusion to what you're actually saying. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the vibes I'm getting with this video, where I definitely went into the video with this kind of thesis going in. And I think as I'm covering the games and kind of talking about them, you know, especially this portion of the video, it is like I'm kind of a little bit kind of forcing that conspiracy theory a bit too much, like a little bit too much, like I'm talking about like all the games where like, oh, you turn the Wiimote sideways and you just want to make like 2D side scrollers and shit, and like I'm hamming it up a bit. And I'm definitely coming into the video with an angle that I'm kind of forcing onto people. And again, not necessarily that I disagree with what I said, but it does kind of come across like I had like a thesis for this video that like I made beforehand, and I'm just sticking to it no matter what. Because the thing I kind of realized, because again, there's a lot of like things that do kind of contradict what I'm going on, you know, with this kind of conspiracy theory, like, you know, like Super Mario Galaxy 2, that's like a hardcore good Mario game, you know, like Skyward Sword was like a good Zelda game overall, you know. Motion controls aside and game structure aside, like that was supposed to be like a hardcore Nintendo game that the hardcore fans would like. So everything I'm saying in this video, I do sort of agree with still, but there are those instances where like, okay, maybe I'm kind of hamming it up a bit too much. You know what I mean?
Game came packed with Wii Motion Plus, an add-on for the Wii Remote that basically improved the accuracy of the motion controls. The technology was pretty impressive, but I didn't give a shit. Motion controls initially seemed like this great advancement that would help deliver amazing games, but it was pretty clear by now that they were simply a gimmick. The infrared detection allowed for some really nice...
Yeah, kind of talking about, especially at this point in time, like, I feel like, especially during this era, like 2008, 2009, like, we're definitely getting to the point where, like, you know, the Wii's come out, they played a bunch of games have come out for the system, and I feel like people have kind of started to realize, like, okay, like, it's a cool, motion controls are cool, but it is kind of like a gimmick. And I don't think it was until, like Microsoft released like the Kinect and shit, and like Sony did like the Move controllers. I forget what the fuck they're even called. Move. Oh, it is the Move controller. Okay, yeah, Move motion. Yeah, like Sony put out the Move controller, Xbox put out the Kinect, and it's like, you know what I mean? Like, people were just like, kind of just like over this shit. Yeah, like the Kinect came out in like 2010, like around that era. Like, everyone was kind of over this shit, and God, again, here I'm kind of like, I'm repeating myself a bit too much here with like all the rants and stuff. Like,
the visuals are incredibly bland, the gameplay is good enough, and you go straight,
especially because like a lot of these games I end up I talked about like New Super Mario Bros. Wii in the Super Mario retrospective, so I am kind of like in this video and these console videos, I do kind of repeat myself a bit too much.
feels like Nintendo was making this
Like, I think the Super Paper Mario section was okay because I was kind of like explaining why I was disappointed during the time. But at this point in the video, I am kind of repeating myself a bit too much. Like, I could calm down a bit, you know?
Clear, creative direction. Super Mario Sunshine, Majora's Mask, The Wind Waker. These were games with bold, artistic vision. So when Nintendo releases new Super Mario Bros. Wii, why do people just put up with it? They could have made one of the best 2D Super Mario games of all time.
Again, I'm
but they didn't.
kind of ranting a bit too much on new Super Mario Bros. Wii. Like, I, you know what I mean? Like, I already talked about in the Super Mario retrospective. I think I am kind of just doubling down on like why it was disappointing, at least from my perspective. So I guess it is kind of necessary, where I'm sort of painting the angle of like, you know, like Nintendo's trying to appeal to casual audiences and stuff. And again, kind of comparing it to like Four Swords Adventure with how that game was like, you know, so much fun in comparison. You know what I mean?
And then they added the Game Boy Advance connector, so you can look at the Game Boy screen.
But again, you could, because Nintendo, like, as much as I can criticize the motion controls and stuff, like for the Wii, like, Nintendo was always doing this shit. Like, they were always like doing wacky, goofy shit. Like, I literally just talked about Four Swords Adventure, where it's like you get the Game Boy Advance and like connect it to the GameCube, and then like you have alternate screens to look at while you're playing the game. Like, that's some goofy ass Nintendo shit. But again, I am kind of arbitrarily being like, yeah, but that game was good, so that's fine, you know? While at the same time kind of criticizing Nintendo here for doing kind of the same goofy shit, but like they're just not doing a good job with it, you know what I mean? Like, so in that respect, I am kind of being like a bit biased in that sense, you know what I mean?
Nintendo is covering all their bases. You get the fairly competent casual players with Mario.
But yeah, despite sort of like despite kind of leaning into this conspiracy theory a bit too hard and really trying to sell it to people, I do definitely agree. Like, during the time, like, all of these Wii games where you turn the Wiimote sideways and like basically use it as an NES controller, like, I was getting like really sick of these style of games. And that was kind of the point I was in the heart of the discussion I'm trying to make at this point of the video is essentially just like, yeah, man, like, I'm just tired of all this 2D side scroller shit. I'm tired of turning the Wiimote sideways. Like, man, like, you got the fucking nunchuck, dude. Like, make some good ass games. Like, make some complicated games. Do something more interesting. And like, yeah, especially like the later half of the Wii, I feel like we just weren't getting stuff that was like super interesting. Especially like stuff on the GameCube and stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
rolling around on the screen and you draw lines to control the ball and he plays the ball and draw lines and they're just like, what the fuck are we doing?
And again, I'm going on some crazy rants here. And I do think it's funny, like talking about Canvas Curse and stuff. Like that's a funny bit.
Experimental games are also really good. So for Kirby, they might put out a bunch of shit that I don't really care about, but it's usually not that terrible, and sometimes it's pretty good. Clearly, Kirby's Epic Yarn is an experimental game designed for little kids.
And I do like how I at least had the forethought to kind of just say that, like, yeah, Kirby's Epic Yarn, that's not for me. Like, I'm not going to complain about it too much. This bit's also really funny, too. Talking about the 2DS and how, like, 35-year-old men are, like, losing their shit. It's like, dude, it's so shitty.
Listen, guys, I'm an old ass man.
You know what I mean?
RBG Power Wheels, couldn't even fit inside it. Hello, Fisher Price. What the fuck? At a certain point, you just look like an idiot.
That's a funny bit. Okay.
You can pretty much just look at the box and see that it's a fucking baby game intended for fucking babies.
But again, I think the reason why I'm ranting so long about this shit is because, honestly, like, when you go, like, if you go look at like the Wii catalog and like look at the list of games that Nintendo actually put out, like, it is like pretty underwhelming. Like, and again, like, I know there's tons of like Wii games, like third-party Wii games and stuff that are really good that like fleshed out the system, but like, man, the specific stuff that Nintendo was doing during the time, it was like super underwhelming, and like, again, ignoring like Brawl and Galaxy and Twilight Princess, like, yeah, so I think that's kind of the reason why I've been ranting so long about these specific Nintendo games, because again, a lot of this criticism with the Wii, it's mainly just about Nintendo and what Nintendo is doing during the time, and not necessarily the console itself. Which I guess, like, it is kind of a departure from what I've been doing with these, like, console videos, because, like, you know, like in the GameCube video and the Nintendo 64 video, I would talk about, like, all this random niche shit I played during the time, so, yeah, maybe it's a bit unfair. Maybe it's a bit unfair. Like, I don't know. Maybe I should have talked more about, like, you know, the Okami port, because I played Okami on this. I played RE4 on this, you know. Maybe in that respect, maybe I should have been a bit nicer and, like, mention more of the third-party games and kind of just say, oh, yeah, but, like, there's, like, some other good shit during the time, you know? But again, I think I was just more focused on, like, the angle that Nintendo was going off of and how they've kind of become babies and shit.
But if I had a giant conspiracy theory about Nintendo dumbing down all their games, this would be a pretty weird trend.
You have to remember, I'm making this video from the perspective of like the Wii U came out and it was total dog shit, and like I was basically completely vindicated on all these kind of opinions of like Nintendo being bad and like kind of going in a wrong direction. Because I already kind of have the hindsight in this video of like realizing that like, yeah, they took all this energy from like the later half of the Wii and brought that into the Wii U, and then it just completely sucked dick. So in many ways, again, I'm kind of operating on this video with like the knowledge that the Wii, like the Wii U was the successor to this, and it carried that same kind of the same kind of vibes, the same kind of energy, and it sucked. So maybe I think the reason why I'm not being like as kind to the Wii in this video is because I was definitely validated by like, yeah, dude, this shit sucked. Like the Wii Sports shit was just like the Wii branded games suck dick. I mean, obviously Wii Sports is good, but like, you know what I mean? Like all the like Wii branded crap, like that shit sucked, and like appealing to the casual audiences, like that all sucked. And again, like with the Wii U, like that console like only got good when like Nintendo finally got their shit together and like stopped doing all this dumb shit. Like the golden era of the Wii U is like the later half where it's like, yeah, dude, like Smash 4 came out, and like Splatoon was fucking awesome, you know, like that was the era of time where like I could finally like look at the Wii, like in 2015 or so, where like I finally like had games on the Wii U, like a couple of good ones. I'm like, okay, you know what? Like, yeah, the Wii U's selling terribly, but like, man, we're fucking back. Like we're finally back to like the Nintendo I loved growing up. And yeah, man, like this like whole period of time where Nintendo was kind of just like putting out 2D side scrollers and like all this shit, I was just like it was just not a fun time.
For the most part, I think Nintendo did a very good job.
And honestly, this was the point in time where like, honestly, I think I mentioned this in the video, but this was like the point in time where like I was like, you know what? Fuck Nintendo, bro. I'm gonna play other stuff. And like I ended up buying like a cheap ass PS2, and I started playing games on Steam, you know, and honestly, it's because of the Wii, because during the time, I would definitely say I was like, I did play other games, but I was like mostly just playing Nintendo stuff, and I was definitely like a Nintendo fanboy, quote unquote. But I think it was because of the Wii kind of like sucking dick, and like I really had like nothing I really wanted to play on the system. Like that's almost the reason why I started like actually like getting into other consoles and like playing PC games and stuff, because yeah, man, there was like a good 5-year period where like Nintendo was releasing things I just did not care about.
of learning how to play the game. It's fucking ridiculous. But it just goes to show how hell-bent Nintendo was on attracting new players to their games. I'm not saying that my conspiracy theory is true,
but I will say, like, the saving grace of this video, despite me kind of like forcing my opinion into it, is I am glad that I kind of structured it all as like a giant conspiracy theory, because it kind of allows me to kind of give my opinion and kind of give my own kind of thesis for like why I was disappointed with the Wii. But because I'm kind of structuring it as a conspiracy theory, it does kind of allow people to kind of brush it off and be like, okay, you're just being crazy. You know what I mean? So that was kind of a smart decision. And again, bro, I still have not played Super Mario Galaxy 2. I still haven't played it. I have to come back to it at some point. I gotta play it at some point, because it's kind of ridiculous at this point. Like, I haven't played Galaxy 2. Bro, like, I literally went back and played like Galaxy 1 like multiple times, even after this point, and like I still didn't go back to Galaxy 2. It's like, what the fuck am I doing? But again, like, bro, Galaxy 1 I'm like way more nostalgic for, and that's like the game that I like playing. But apparently Galaxy 2 is like good and probably even better because, you know, obviously, you know, but anyways, whatever. And again, here kind of, again, hyping, kind of repeating myself way too much based off things I've said before. Like, again, you know, I've talked about this in the Skyward Sword Uncivil Synopsis. I talked about Skyward Sword and the fucking Zelda retrospective, you know. So I am kind of repeating things a bit too much overall. But again, this is the perfect example of
Meanwhile, around the same week that Skyward Sword was released, Skyrim came out.
Yeah, I've done this comparison a lot. Like, yeah, man, during the time, like, Skyrim came out like right at the same time Skyward Sword came out, and it was like, bro, fuck this Skyward Sword shit, bro. I'm playing Skyrim.
Bethesda unintentionally made a game that felt more like Zelda than the actual Zelda game that just came out.
And again, kind of iterating like how dumb Bethesda is, because like I'm not even like a Bethesda fanboy. Like, I do love their games, and I am a fan overall. But man, like, no, it's like this was like, these guys weren't smart when they're like making Skyrim, okay? They just lucked out and they just made like a goofy ass game that's like janky and shitty, and even that's better than Skyward Sword. You know what I mean? Like, and again, that was a funny bit where I zoomed in on the gravestone and went, game over. Yeah, I've done that before. That's a good bit. Game over, yeah. Did I do that? Oh yeah, I did that with the Wii U video. Did I do that with Wii U? I think I did. I don't know. But that's a great bit. And again, this is me being a bit biased, obviously. You know, listen, Nintendrone is not an objective series, okay? It is me being obviously biased, okay? I grew up with all the good games, because even though I do recognize, like, yeah, I am a bit biased with Nintendo 64 and GameCube because I grew up with them. Like, simultaneously at the same time, I'm like, bro, I just grew up with the good games. I do selfishly kind of think that. Like, bro, I just grew up with, like, the best games ever, okay? And Nintendo made a couple. They made Super Mario Galaxy, Twilight Princess, and Brawl. Those are the only games that I think are on par with everything else. Yeah, and I am glad that I'm kind of just like personally saying like, yeah, bro, I just didn't vibe with this shit. Because I wouldn't say these games are bad or anything. They're just like, you know what I mean? They're all like,
shitty. I didn't care about Super Mario Galaxy 2 because they were selling me the same shit again. I didn't care about Animal Crossing City Folk because they were selling me the same shit again.
Again, a bit repeating myself a bit too much, but again, I'm reining in the conclusion of this conspiracy theory thesis I got going on. Kind of showing all the stuff I glossed over, like, yeah, like, no, like, okay, the Punch-Out game is probably good. You know, Rhythm Heaven is obviously good. You know what I mean? It's just like all this shit that like I just don't care. You know, I don't. You know what I mean? Like that's not going to be like those games aren't like the make or break experiences that are going to like make me like love the Wii. You know what I mean? Like
Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games, Mario and Sonic at the London 2012 Olympic Games, Link's crossbow training. It's better than Skyward Sword. Now, I already know what you're going to say. What about all the amazing games made by third?
Yeah, I didn't play Monster Hunter during the time. I started playing Monster on the Wii U, but yeah, dude, the RE4 port was really good. Yeah, so a lot of people got offended by this like shovelware list because not everything on this list is like quote unquote shovelware. You know what I mean? Like I think like Da Blob is up there, and you know, like there are a couple of good games that like up there that I wouldn't consider to be shovelware. Cause again, this was just like one big PNG that I just grabbed off like Google search. I'm just like, Wii shovelware games. And I just saw this image. I was like, okay, that's fine. Because again, the main vibe I was trying to get across is like, bro, when you're at like Target or like Best Buy or something and you're going down, it's like, oh, let me check out the Wii games. Like, bro, it was all just like dumb shit like this. Like the whole aisle was just littered with like dumb shit like this. And it's just like, it's like, yeah, bro, like I'm not going to play any of this shit. Like this is all trash. You know what I mean? Like, and yeah, maybe a couple of these games, like apparently Da Blob is okay. You know what I mean? Like, some of these games might be like technically fine, but that's just the vibe I was trying to explain, because it's just like you'd walk down the aisle and like you just see all this dumb shit and it's like, God, bro, the Wii just fucking sucks. It really does. Anyways, moving on.
A lot of third-party developers saw the success of Wii.
And again, there were still like good third-party games, obviously, like, you know, RE4, you know, Okami, No More Heroes, etc. You know, yeah, I am highlighting it here. Like, there are like some good things.
Because all the casual dipshits were just playing Wii Sports.
And again, that might just be like a.
Fans were just buying Nintendo games.
And again, I didn't even talk about like Xenoblade Chronicles. Like that was also a great game too. But again, that like Xenoblade Chronicles came out on like the literal tail end of the console, and like you literally had to like pre-order it from GameStop, and if you didn't pre-order it, you didn't get it. You know what I mean? Like it was the most limited release of all time, you know? So in many respects, I didn't even like talk about that because, you know what I mean? Like it just wasn't even worth mentioning. But I do think Xenoblade Chronicles, I've played it later down the road, and it's a really good game too. But during the time, I didn't play on the Wii because it was like, it just like wasn't available basically. Unless you pre-ordered it.
If you bought the Wii as your first console, you might not have been as disappointed. But for me personally, I was going into it with...
Okay, yeah, so I am glad that I'm kind of like, I am saving the video a bit by kind of like downplaying the fact like, okay, yeah, this is my own personal opinion, this is my own personal experience, okay, you guys might like the Wii. That is like the saving grace of this video, because I feel like if I didn't do that and just said the Wii sucks, like, this video probably would have gotten a lot more hate.
That's the Wii.
Okay, but overall, yeah, pretty good video overall. I would say on par with the other console videos, I would say this one, if we're comparing it to the Wii U video is definitely way better. As far as like a structured story and like analysis of Nintendo during the time. The Wii U video is just top tier. This one is definitely not as good as the Wii U video. Now, for comparing it to the older ones, like the GameCube and Nintendo 64 video, I would say this one's better than the GameCube one, despite how long it is, because I do think there's like more interesting things I talk about. There's more interesting side rants. more like hot takes and like fun things to talk about with this video, as opposed to the GameCube one where I'm just like, yeah, this game's good and this game's good and this game good. And, you know, I love the GameCube. All these games are good. You know, that's like, that's whatever. Now, when I'm comparing this one to the Nintendo 64 one, personally, I do enjoy the Nintendo 64 video more than this one. Because again, that video, it's a lot more nostalgic. It's a lot more like, I feel like positive kind of, a positive introduction to Nintendo as a whole. So, and there's a lot more like fun stories that I had with the console, the Nintendo 64 specifically, that I kind of personally just enjoy more. So I do put the Nintendo 64 video above this video. But yeah, that's kind of my definitive ranking. But yeah, we'll cover this topic again once we get to the Wii U. But yeah, man. Moving on. Next video. Holy shit.